Hey, it's Derek Hagan, financial therapist specializing in meaning in life and mindfulness, here with another money health conversation where we're going to talk about resilience and how you can grow from pain. Resilience is basically bouncing back from whatever life throws your way. So if you're floating along through life, something bad may happen, and this something bad, we'll call it pain here, but this could be adversity or whatever you want to call it. And it could be big, like losing a limb, losing a job, losing your house, getting kicked out. Could be something really, really small, just a tiny unexpected expense. But if it feels like it's painful, that counts as pain. Resilience is learning to take the lessons that you get from all of life's struggles and growing from it. And we can even go further and say we should want this. Because if you plot adversity against strength, this is a positive relationship. And by that, I mean we grow from adversity. In fact, we need adversity to grow. Trees. If trees in the ground grow without wind, you might think, this is great. Let's take the wind away from trees. When the wind blows against a tree, it flops the branches all over the place. If it's strong enough wind, the tree topples over. Let's just get rid of the wind. Take all the stress away, right? Except in Biosphere 2, they found out that without wind, trees will grow faster than they otherwise would, but they don't stay up on their own. They flop over. They're in fact floppy trees because trees need stress in order to become strong. And that's the same thing, exactly the same thing as us. So we should welcome it. We should welcome pain. We should welcome adversity because we can't get better if we don't practice. And life is nothing but a series of stressful events. And you can think of a specific event. What's the chance that I'm going to lose my job? Or what's the chance that my house is going to burn down? Or what's the chance that there's going to be this other unexpected expense? Any specific event, the chance of that very specific event happening is pretty small. But if you think of what's the chance of any bad thing happening, and now that's 100%. This is guaranteed. This is the human condition. This is what it means to be a person. There will be struggles and setbacks. Life is nothing but a series of struggles and setbacks, so it makes little sense to be surprised at the appearance of the next one. So if we can learn to change our mindset, to not wish for a life free from stress, which would be boring anyways, but to embrace it, we can become more resilient. And we become more resilient by focusing on three aspects, and that is kind of what we pay attention to, what we think about, what we pay attention to, and then what we're going to do about it. And what we pay attention to, we have a negative filter on the world. And this negativity bias basically says that our brains are they're like Teflon for good events. They just don't stick. We don't notice good events as often. We don't remember all the good things that happen to us. We don't even notice the good stuff. One bad thing though, one tiny little bad thing has the capacity to ruin us, because bad events are like Velcro for the brain. Those stick, and those stick around. So the negativity bias says we will notice and pay more attention to threats than opportunities. This is not some kind of defect. This is in fact how we're wired. If you follow your family tree up far enough, you're going to get to people whose job it was to survive. Now, if I'm back in those days and I see a stick, but I think it's a snake, well, then I might run away. And the worst thing that's going to happen to me if I run away is I might get a little bit embarrassed, but I survive until tomorrow to get embarrassed again. Conversely, if I see a snake, but I think it's a stick, that's game over. Right? I had to pay more attention to the threats. If I miss an opportunity, well, I can look for an opportunity tomorrow. If I miss a threat, whoops. So this is inherent in our genes that we inherited. We will pay more attention to the bad. Now, to combat this negativity bias, we can think about savoring our experience, savoring and noticing when we have good experiences. We can take on a gratitude practice. And this is just a practice to help us recognize more of the good that's going on all around us. So if we can increase our field of vision, we're not trying to not pay attention to bad and only look at good. This is not some kind of toxic positivity. But if we can balance this and pay more attention to both sides of our complete experience, then we'll get a bigger picture and a better picture of what's actually happening, and we're less likely to ruminate, because when we ruminate, we focus just on this one bad thing here. So that's what we notice, and we can expand the field of what we notice. But then we have to think about, well, how do we interpret what we notice? Because it feels like something happens, and then we have some kind of upsetting thought or behavior because of what happened. And this idea is not old. You can go back to ancient Stoic philosophers who say things like, people are not upset by things, but our interpretations of things, or our views of things, our perception of things. It's this little belief in between this adversity and upsetting behavior that goes back a long time, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like there's a trigger that caused me to do something, like there's a trigger that caused me to think something. This is called an appraisal, and these appraisals sit in between the adversity and our thought or behavior. And we can appraise things as good or bad or neutral. But if we can slow down our thinking process, we can get some insight into how we're thinking. Are we assuming the worst all the time? If so, is there any evidence for the way we're thinking? Is there any evidence against what we're thinking? So once we understand it's our interpretation of what's happened that we react to, not the thing itself, we can slow down and even challenge these automatic thoughts. Okay, so there's what we focus on, and this is what we think about what we notice. And then there's what we do about it. Coping. How do we cope with adversity? And when we cope with adversity, I want to think in terms of what is in our control and what are we doing. Okay, when something happens to us, something really bad, something to us, we can look through this through two different lenses. What can we control and what can we do? And when we think about coping, there's what psychologists call adaptive coping styles, which means these are likely to be helpful, and maladaptive coping styles, and these are likely to be unhelpful. Okay, so what's unhelpful? Well, a lot of people are uncomfortable with uncertainty. They're uncomfortable with being out of control. So if you find yourself trying to control things that are outside of your control, you're just wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, you're focusing on the wrong things. This would be a maladaptive coping style. Trying to control something that's out of your control, trying to control someone that's out of your control, trying to have some control over exterior events. Maladaptive. Now, conversely, some people have things that they could do that are in their control, but they don't do anything because maybe it's so stressful that they just give up. They just give up and say, I'm not going to do anything. Not doing something that you could do, also maladaptive. Right, so if you're in either of these circles, but not in the overlapping spot, this is maladaptive. Now, the most common adaptive coping style is to focus on this intersection. Now, this intersection says, there's something in my control that I can do, and I did it. I reached out to friends in time of need. I hired a professional. I did some journaling. I took care of those things that I needed to do. I took one tiny step in a process that seemed very daunting. Focusing on what you can do and doing that and learning the lessons is very adaptive. And then sometimes it's out of both circles. Now, this is the difficult coping style. Can you let go of what you can't control? If what's happening is outside of your control, do you have the ability to surrender and say, well, I can't do anything right now. I can learn from this going forward, but there's nothing I can do right now. Save your energy, save your space. So think about resiliency in terms of what you see, what you think about what you see, and what you can do. And if you focus on these three areas, you can become more resilient and you can become happier. You get one life. Live intentionally.